Hello, everyone. I'm Andre, the developer evangelist here at Content, and today I have a special guest to talk about migration. It's Tom Marshall from a digital agency called Kyan. Tom, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. As Andre said, yeah, my name's Tom. I've been working in digital products and websites and apps for a little bit over a decade now. And yeah, as Andre mentioned, I'm head of technology at an agency in the UK called Kyan.
Cool. Now, Tom, regarding migrations, I know that you've published an article on Content Blog. That's why I wanted to get a quick chat with you about the topic. I assume that you were not born as a head of technology, right? What was your career into this position? Were you a developer, or what was it like?
Yeah, so I started out as a web developer. I was in online marketing a little bit before that, but for the bit that's interesting, I started out as a web developer, and then kind of worked my way up through web development into senior role, into a lead role, and then my time at Kyan, I was a solutions architect first, and now I'm a head of technology. So I've been migrating content from places at various points throughout that, and various levels of kind of hands-on expertise to strategic expertise as kind of my career's progressed.
Nice. Coming from customer success background myself, I know what you're talking about. About the solution architect position. But that leads me to a first question. How many migrations have you done in your career?
So yeah, I was trying to think back to the various migrations that I'd worked on while I was writing the article, and I think it's probably somewhere in the region of kind of more than seven, less than 10. I'd say it's not a huge amount, but enough that it's left a mark.
Yeah, that's more than we want to do, right? And out of those 7 to 10, how many of those were seamless? That went exactly as was planned. There were no bugs or no unexpected issues.
Zero, literally zero.
So something always goes wrong, yeah.
Yeah. There's I mean, I'm sure we'll get into some of it, but there's just inherent sort of complexity and depth to some of them that normally doesn't. It's not very obvious when you look at it. You think, oh, okay, content's over here or the data's over here, and we're going to move it over to this place. And it's only really when you kind of get down into the details of that some of the work to be done kind of exposes itself. And invariably, there's always some tough, unexpected stuff that emerges.
Right. And we're not talking about just headless CMS, right? Because I guess you were migrating also content from a different CMS to a different CMS or something like that, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, some of the early stuff in my career was from custom CMSs to things like WordPress and Drupal. And then between the likes of WordPress and Drupal, and then also now kind of out of traditional CMSs and into headless.
Now we touched upon why people hate doing migrations. Yeah, because we talked about unexpected issues. Is that the thing that they hate the most, or do you see another pattern among developers? Because whenever I talk to developers and mention migration, it's as you said in the article, yeah, everyone just thinks, oh, that this is going to be the last task of the project. Nothing's going to go wrong there, and they don't really put too much focus on that task. So, what is it that people really hate about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's multifaceted. I don't think it's any one thing. I think the complexity certainly, or the unexpected complexity certainly plays a role. I think that can make them quite stressful because inherently, as you just sort of mentioned there, they're quite often left towards the end. And then towards the end, everybody's excited to get the site live and it's been estimated at this. And then you get into it and you find out, oh, actually, this is going to take much longer than we thought and there's much more work to be done here. So I think anyone who's been through them kind of has this kind of stress or anxiety that's attached to them because invariably they're the bottleneck at that point to getting the site live, which isn't particularly nice. I think some of the other things in there is some of the problems, some of the challenges that need to be solved can be seen as quite tedious. Kind of this like it can be seen as this kind of never-ending list of like edge cases as you iterate and loop through runs of this migration and this tool that you've written, and you just keep finding other things that you needed to handle, whether that's don't know, a particular type of embed that you hadn't seen, or character encoding is always a fun one that often comes up, where all the apostrophes are suddenly kind of HTML entities or that sort of thing. So quite a lot of that stuff can kind of be like, you think you're done and then you're not, and that can be quite frustrating. And then I think the fact that they're just this means to an end. What we want as kind of the business or the agency is the customer value that we're going to get from moving to this new platform or technology. And the migration is really just a means to getting to that. And no sooner if you're finished with it and it's kind of thrown away and it's never to be used again. And I think all of the developers that I've worked with, certainly in my career, take a lot of pride in the work that we do. And it's quite frustrating to kind of put all of that effort in for something that you know is got a limited lifespan. And as soon as you're done with it, it's kind of adding no further value at that point.
Right. Yeah. I see why that could be a problem for developers. But that leads me to another question. Like, did you think when those migrations were done and you could have discarded the code, did you have a feeling that that was the last migration that you'll ever do, or did you know, somewhere in the back of your mind that in 5 years, in 10 years, you're gonna do the migration again?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably early on there was certainly a perception of, yeah, this is the last one. Like, we're going to move this over here. Everything's going to be great. We're never going to have to move it again. I think as I've got a bit more experience in my career, invariably I've now accepted that no, that's probably not the case. These projects to move to kind of new platforms and technologies feel very final at the time, but invariably they're final until they're not. Progress is kind of a constant. Something is always going to come along, particularly in this kind of digital world that we operate in, and supersede what's there. I mean, in my career alone, I've seen the trend in terms of content-based websites go from static sites to custom CMSs to open source CMSs with WordPress and Drupal. I think there was a bit of a movement back to static sites for a little bit with Markdown, with things like Jekyll when that first came around. And now at the moment, obviously, there's this big movement around kind of Jamstack and headless CMSs.
Right. And talking about headless CMSs, I assume that some of the last migrations were into headless CMS, like content. Do you think, from your experience, could this mean that this is going to be the last migration? Do you think that headless CMSs are here to stay?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, as I've just explained, it's nerve-wracking to say, yeah, this could be the last one, because change is constant, and sometimes these things feel final and turn out not to be. But what's different in this case with a migration to headless is it is just the content that's being moved. It's not being coupled to the technology that's delivering platforms or experiences to customers. Mm-hmm. It is the content management for the editors and then exposing that content via an API. And I think that architecture is one that has the potential to scale beyond the next technology trend. If something comes along in the web space and we're moving on from Jamstack to something new in 5 years' time, I think it's quite likely that we'd still want to consume our content from somewhere that's centrally managing that and exposing that as an API. So yeah, I'm nervous. I'm nervous to say in this uncertain world that yes, 100% final, but I think this probably has the best chance I've seen in my career so far.
In 10 years, I can go back and tell you, hey, Tom, you know what you said 10 years ago? Here we are. But yeah, what you said, I think is the biggest, or from my perspective, when I was doing migrations in the past, that was the biggest problem, that the content was not structured, right? Some content was just coupled with the HTML. And a lot of people these days, even our clients that I talk to, or developers, they don't understand why we are decoupling everything, yeah, and they just see only their websites, and they don't look beyond the channels, because HTML means completely nothing when you look at mobile apps or when you look at external system, even printed publications, yeah. In there, the HTML does not mean anything. So we need the content in a structured way, and coming from a system, even a traditional CMS that has a lot of content really coupled tightly with the presentational form, made it a nightmare to convert it into some structures. And sometimes we even had to fall back, into doing things manually, because it was just easier to do, the migration manually in 2 days than create a code with all its exceptions and variants and spend a week on it to run a single migration. So you touched upon that. Do you think that this is gonna get better with the headless CMS that actually forces you, or at least that's the way how I see it, that forces you to introduce a good patterns in your content and forces you to use structured content?
Yeah, I mean, part of the big draw of the structured content, right, is this kind of horizontal reuse across the different products or platforms or services that you offer to your customers already, whether that's a website, a mobile app, something like an Alexa skill or a smart home device. That content can be managed centrally and then reused across all of those. And it's that architecture is also empowering for when something new comes along. That content can be reused for whatever that new thing is. So yeah, I think it's inherent in the model that this could be around to stay.
On any project that you've done in the past, has it already saved you some time that the customer came back to you and said, "Hey, we want to do this Alexa integration, or we want the content to be published to this platform as well," and you said, "Yes, I have the structured content in the CMS. I can do this in just a few hours"?
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a shameless plug for my talk at Horizons, but we have a client called Baking Mad who operate a baking recipes and community site here in the UK. It's bakingmad.com if anyone wants to take a look at it. Some really good stuff on there. We moved them over to headless content to drive their new website, and then identified an opportunity where obviously if you're baking in the kitchen, hands are often a mess, you want to know what the next step of the recipe is. Actually using the website on a laptop, tablet or phone is actually a bit of a tricky ask sometimes. It means either washing your hands or using an elbow or something. So yeah, we're in the process of kind of building out a prototype for them at the moment where we're using an Alexa to kind of do a handoff from, right, okay, this is what I want to bake, and then we can move that over to a voice experience, and bakers can continue on, I don't know, kneading their rolls without having to kind of wash their hands in between steps. And that's something that the content editors their side were super excited and on board for, because it was no additional work to them, right? They were just creating and managing these recipes as they'd always done for their website, and now there was this opportunity to bring that to their bakers with a brand new experience at no additional effort from them from content management point of view.
This is great. And are people actually using it? Do you have any statistics on that? If people just bake with their Alexa?
Well, we're still in beta at the moment, but yeah, we're certainly going to be tracking it, and we think I'm quite optimistic about the uptake on it, because as I said, it was something that we identified actually as part of kind of our user testing process. We were kind of trying to optimize the website and the layout of the page and everything, and we just kept coming back to the thing of, well, I can't interact with the device. So yeah, it was an opportunity that arose that we were then able to capitalize on because we were on headless.
Cool. That sounds really interesting. Perfect. So for the last few questions, I actually want to go a bit more abstract than this and actually leverage your experience, because you're in the tech field for quite some time. And I know that, these days, digital agencies still work mostly on websites, right? Because that's the main channel. People are on the web and expect to find everything there. So everyone has a website. But there are also mobile apps, as you said, integrations, like not look at the recipes on your phone, but just ask your voice assistant for that. Do you see any trends that companies are moving towards other channels than just websites?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, the majority of our work at the moment is still very much web and mobile apps. But we've definitely seen a trend in opportunities for clients on new platforms. I think as tech is becoming even more so, kind of ubiquitous in our lives, whether that's smart speakers in the kitchen, wearables, Internet of Things devices, other smart home equipment. I think we're kind of seeing this upward trend in opportunities for additional products and services that we can deliver to our clients, customers that can add value there. Obviously, I mentioned kind of baking mad Alexa that we were looking at last year. I think the year before that, we were working with an insurer and looking at how we could kind of identify whether somebody who was kind of like under monitored care, whether they were active in their home. And kind of the product that we were looking at there was a sort of IoT device that would strap onto the water pipe and make sure that water was coming into the home, because that's actually a really good marker that's not very intrusive, not like a CCTV camera or something like that, but it would identify whether somebody was up and active, and if not, notifications could be sent to personnel to go and check on them. And there's just a lot more of that type of stuff coming across our desk these days. So yeah, it's quite an exciting time.
That's really cool. I haven't even thought about that. But yeah, it looks like a great monitor if people are still active. Wow. Cool. And do you think that in the future, because we now see that a lot of apps like Teams, Outlook, I've seen Photoshop that go on the web. So you just open your browser and you have everything there. Now, what I want to ask you is, do you think that web will still remain the main channel in the future? Or we're going to see some, consumer trends that will actually let new channels be created that will be closer to people than web?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had a crystal ball to answer on that, so I could make some very shrewd investments in companies. I mean, I love the web, so I'm going to say yes. I think the web will remain a constant, and I think it's kind of its model of connectivity. And distribute. I know there's conversations around how distributed the web really is with kind of these big companies in here now, but at its heart, I think that network model and distribution and how everybody can become a creator, and it's this direct to consumer access and all of those types of things. I think it's going to be very difficult to really supplant web. But obviously, if you look at kind of the macro trends, and the way people are kind of consuming content and media, and just technological progress in general with things like VR, there's obviously going to be some challenges to it in the year ahead. But I think kind of these architectures where we're exposing business operations or content or data via APIs are the right place to be when the world looks so uncertain, but change does look certain in terms of whatever comes along. Those kind of API-based architectures should be able to adjust to it and meet customers where they go.
So hopefully that means headless CMSs are here to stay, and their APIs ensure that your content can be delivered to any new platform that emerges. Cool, Tom. Thank you very much for your insights. Now I want to say to our watchers, if you want to read Tom's article, it's published on Content Blog. The link is down in the video description. Tom, any last words that you want to share?
No, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me on to chat.
Sure. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully we'll have you here more in the future. So thank you very much. See you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.